Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later on, we'll learn about the effort to build a statue in Lexington honoring women who've made a difference over the years. We'll be hearing from the Breaking the Bronze Ceiling group, which says only 7% of the monuments built in this country honor women. That's later on Kentucky Newsmakers. But first, the president of Transylvania University is here. Transylvania has a rich tradition. It was chartered a dozen years before Kentucky even became a state. And when Kentucky entered the Union in 1792, Transy already had a strong academic reputation. Henry Clay was a law professor there and served on the board. And among Transylvania's graduates are the founder of Texas, 2 vice presidents, 2 Supreme Court justices, and more than 100 members of Congress. The president of Transylvania University right now is Dr. Seamus Carey, who is a leading voice in the nation on the importance of education, especially as we head into a complex future. Under his leadership, Transylvania's campus is getting a transformation with some new buildings and other projects. We want to welcome President Carey to Kentucky Newsmakers. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Very much. Well, you're the 26th president, and you were telling me you're enjoying the job, about to start the fall semester right now. I would imagine that is an exciting time for any college president. What's it like when the campus comes back to life?
Yeah, well, most of the administration is on campus all summer long, working and getting ready for the school year. But there's nothing like when students return back to campus and the faculty comes back to campus, and there's just a new life there on campus. And every year there's new students, and we're getting to know those people now, and that's always a really exciting time.
Tell us how you came to this point in your life. Very interesting that you were a first-generation college student yourself.
Yes, I was. Both parents are immigrants from Ireland, not a whole lot of formal education, but incredibly hardworking, bright people who valued education, and instilled in us a work ethic more than anything else. And through various heights of good fortune, I managed to get myself to a really good liberal arts college, and that was a transformative experience for me. I met some great professors there. They became lifelong friends. But it really opened me up to aspects of the world I would never have encountered anywhere else, and so that's inspired me to pursue this path.
Now I understand that first week you were homesick and it didn't quite, you weren't sure that was for you, huh? You went home?
I did. I was there for a week or two, and I came from a very parochial neighborhood. It was a little Irish neighborhood in the Bronx, and an all-boys Catholic high school, and I ended up at Vassar College, and I felt a good bit out of place there. And one Friday afternoon, I decided I'd go home, and that I was homesick. And so when I got home, my father didn't say much, but the next morning he woke up, he said, "Make sure you have a job for Monday morning." And I thought about that, and I had some friends who had construction companies in Manhattan. So I called one of them up. He says, "No, you better get back up to school Monday morning." And the really funny part about it was when I walked back into the dean's office where I left my note that I was withdrawing, the woman at the desk just pulled out the note and handed it back to me, and she said, "This happens all the time."
And so it is today, even at Transylvania University, where a very prestigious college, obviously, but you still have, as I understand it, close to 1 out of 5 of your students will be first-generation college goers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that I learned after coming to Transylvania is there's a dissonance between the perception of Transy sometimes and the actual reality. We have 20% minority students coming in our first year class this year, which we're really proud of. That's an increase. 98% of our students receive some kind of financial assistance through scholarship or financial aid. So we try our best, and I think we've done a really good job at making Transy accessible and affordable, and a lot of the students really require that today.
You have said that you remain a residential campus, and online is not for you.
Not right now. We really excel at the interaction between faculty and students in the classroom. I mean, our average class size is probably around 12 students per class. Many of the classes may even have fewer than that. And that pays dividends. While that's expensive and we have to be really careful with our resources when you have such a heavy investment in personnel, the outcome for the students is unmatched. And I think the results that you see amongst Transylvania graduates is undeniable. They get a tremendous education. Very few students fall through the cracks at Transy.
There are different majors, different disciplines, but what is your hope that a student who is granted that diploma from Transylvania and goes out into the world, what's your hope for them that they have acquired on your campus?
So I would hope that they have the skills they need to succeed in any field they choose. But more importantly, I think over the course of the 4 years at Transylvania, from the ages of 18 to 22, for me, that's a time when students should really be figuring out what it is they want to pursue. When you're 18, it's hard to know what you want to do for the next 40, 50 years of a career. And by exposing students to all these different fields under the guise of expert faculty members, my hope is that they would find something they're passionate about and then pursue that. I mean, that happened for me. I had no idea what philosophy was when I went to college, and I ended up becoming a philosophy professor because of the inspiration I found there. And it made me a better student. It made me a better person. I was passionate about it all throughout my entire life. And I think if students can find that passion in what they study, things that they clearly don't know about when they come to campus, if they can find a passion and by being exposed to something like that, they will be successful.
There's always a theme for the year at Transylvania, and this year it is civility. And you consider that a very important topic in a time of division in this country and around the world. Why is this important to you, and how will it be carried out through the year?
Yeah. I think it's important because I think people question sometimes the value of liberal arts education and private education. And when you see the public discourse and the state it's in today, in my opinion, and I said this to our campus yesterday, we have to rise above that. And if we don't rise above that, then people really should question the value of liberal arts education. We should be civil. We should have the tools and the vocabulary and the communication skills and the disposition to be able to speak to each other about topics without getting personal, without going into our separate tribal camps. And so for me, we need to demonstrate that, in particular for students. And if students have 4 years of that experience, then they'll go out in the world and hopefully make that same sort of contribution in society when they graduate.
So your point is that there are disagreements, and that's fine.
Absolutely. I mean, democracy is messy, right? I mean, people think that democracy should be black and white. That's impossible. The point of democracy is that we debate and we get into exchanges, and out of those exchanges, if you approach them the right way, you come to a more refined idea about what's better or worse or the right thing to pursue.
But there are some who say you have to sometimes be confrontational to get your point across. I mean, is it you're teaching them how to avoid confrontation, or you're teaching them that there's a way to compromise? Confrontation
is essential. Competition is essential. We advocate those things, but we also advocate doing it in a way that speaks to the higher human values of seeking understanding. To me, for example, understanding is a more valuable achievement than being correct. Right? You might have a point of view that's correct. I might have a point of view that's correct. But if we understand where we're coming from, we're actually going to get further along in making compromise. And so the pursuit of understanding, and beyond that, wisdom, as opposed to knowledge, right? I can have a whole bunch of facts and be really unwise. And I think we see a lot of that today. There's a lot of data out there. There's a lot of information on the computer. We can Google anything we want. That does not lend itself to wisdom by itself. And so being able to think and discuss and have discussion and those sorts of things are essential, and that's what we try to do on our campus. And so this is a complex world, as we were talking. The information is everywhere, but the sense to deal with matters seems to be elusive sometimes. Do you think people, because facts or at least information, whether it be correct or not, is so easy to access, the fact that is out there makes people less likely to retain information and have immediate recall of information they could have in a good debate? Yes, I think that is true. But I think even beyond that, I think having that amount of information so immediately accessible tends to keep us from reflecting on it, tends to keep us from stepping back from the immediate immersion in information. And when we don't reflect on that information, it's hard to process it. It's hard to make sense of it. It's hard to find meaning in it. What does this data mean, right? And that's one of the things that our class has really emphasized, is to find what is the real meaning of this data, rather than just having data and regurgitate it back. That's not what we do. What do you say to some parents out there who may feel, you know, when they send their students, their
their children away to college, and that maybe they will be ingrained in ideas and notions that will make them feel uncomfortable with their previous upbringing, and that might create some distance.
That's a stage, and I think it's a developmental stage that's probably healthy. But I also firmly believe that the values and the dispositions and the personality traits that have been instilled from the first days of one's life don't go away. And so what a student is doing when they're going through that stage is really just processing that. The lens through which they're processing this new experience at college is the lens that they've been given as children and as teenagers. That isn't going away. It's just developing and evolving. And I think the more the parents can support that, the more likely it is the students are going to come back and be more in tune with what they learned early on before college, but just more informed.
We're with Dr. Seamus Carey, who is the president of Transylvania University. I've enjoyed the philosophical discussion, but we're going to talk more about what's going on campus in Lexington, where students will be starting their classes next week. Coming up on Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers, and we're glad you're with us today. And we are visiting with the Transylvania University President, Dr. Seamus Carey. Good discussion here. We've been talking about higher education and learning, which no doubt you think is very important in this country, and that the emphasis on that needs to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think as institutions, for example, like religion decline in influence over our population, there aren't a lot of places for young people to gain the values that I think we need to have a healthy democracy. And I think higher ed is one of those places. Your
campus is being transformed. Some construction projects are underway. Tell us about where things are for those who haven't been on campus in a while.
Yeah, very exciting. We've just finished 3 new residential halls, opened the last one last January. Our students are moving into those this week. We renovated our Central Academic Center with the generous gift of Pete Carpenter. It's now called the Carpenter Academic Center. That's the class in which every Transy student will study at some point over the course of their 4 years. And the big project that we are getting underway will start, you'll notice the start of it in December, is a new campus center right on Broadway. We'll be taking down Foro Hall, which has been there for about 60 years. It's outlived its use, and we'll build a really beautiful student center, which will become hopefully the central place of the campus.
We hear a lot about college costs, obviously. How difficult is it to keep an education attainable at a private school like Transy and not have graduates carry a very heavy debt load when they graduate?
Yeah. It's hard, and we're vigilant about maintaining costs. One thing I can say about Transylvania graduates is that our graduates default on loans at about 2%. The national average is 11.5%, and the average of public school graduates in Kentucky is 15%. So we're proud of the fact that our graduates are maintaining the debt load very low, and they're getting jobs and being successful. So we're adamant about maintaining the costs. As I said earlier, 98% of our students get some form of financial aid, and our education we're rated amongst the best schools in the country for best value.
Part of that may be their success rate in getting a job is that you have a mentoring program. 100 Doors to Success is what you call it. You instituted that as soon as you got to Lexington. What does that do, and what difference do you think that makes?
The purpose of the program, when I came to Lexington, one of the great assets I saw that Transylvania has is that we're in Lexington, and so many of our successful graduates are right here in our community. And so while I am an advocate for liberal arts education, I also recognize the importance of preparing students for transition to professional life. And so rather than try to compromise, a lot of schools are trying to compromise one for the other. And I thought we could do both and say, okay, study what you're passionate about, study what you really love, and at the same time, we'll hook you up with a mentor, probably a Transy grad, who has success in the professional world, and work with that person, create a network of professionals before you get out, do an internship, get used to the professional world right here on your doorstep. And that's been a hugely successful program, primarily because of the interest of our alumni. They've really stepped up and gotten interested in helping with our students.
So they're connected when they leave campus.
They are connected before they leave campus, that's right.
You're interested in town-gown relations, as I understand it. Of course, your location there right at the edge of downtown, and also getting along with that school up the street that has the good basketball team. Is there, you have a good team too, right? In your division, right?
We're good at our division, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Is there synergy there, though, between the fact that you have UK so close by?
Absolutely. I admire the work of UK. My daughter's a student at UK. They do a tremendous job. President Capilouto has done an amazing job, and we don't try to compete with UK. We offer a different sort of experience, but we do partner with them. And so we don't have graduate programs, and what we've done is worked with their graduate programs to create articulation agreements so that our graduates can seamlessly move on into their graduate programs. And we've got about 5 or 6 different graduate programs at UK that we're currently in agreement with. And that's a great tool for us, because if students want to have the undergraduate experience that we offer with an eye towards a career or a profession, they can move right on to UK. And UK, that's been a great relationship.
So a joint program where they do much of their classwork with you, but then they're simultaneously earning a degree.
Each of the program has a slightly different twist on it, but engineering, for example, they can do 3 years with us, 2 years with UK.
This region of Kentucky is rich with public and private colleges and universities. Is that a strength?
I think it is. I mean, I think both private and public schools in higher ed are under pressure. The finances of higher education make it difficult for any of us to do all of the things we'd love to do. But I do think it's a strength. As I said, some students are going to be more attracted to the experience they would get at a small school with their close interaction with faculty and students, research opportunities. Some students are going to prefer the big SEC experience, and I admire both of those.
All right. Dr. Seamus Carey, president of Transylvania University, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good academic year ahead.
We're looking forward to it.
Next week.
Yeah.
Coming next on Kentucky Newsmakers, the effort to bring a statue to Lexington honoring the accomplishments of women. We'll be right back with that here on WKYT. Good morning again, and welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers. We're so glad you're with us here on this Labor Day weekend. And this week, the city of Lexington took time out to honor women on Equality Day. It has been 98 years since the 19th Amendment was passed, giving women the right to vote. And now a group wants to build a statue in Lexington celebrating women before the 100th anniversary of that amendment, which is coming up in 2020. Lexington Councilwomen Jennifer Mossotti and Kathy Plomin are chair and co-chair of the effort called Breaking the Bronze Ceiling. And the councilwomen are joining us this morning. We appreciate that very much.
Good morning.
How did this come about, to start with?
Pretty simply, I was reading an article in a magazine one evening, and it stated the amount of statues across the United States, approximately 5,193 statues, but only 7% were women. And that was startling to me, because we are 51% of the population, and not to have that recognition was pretty unbelievable. So as I did some more research in Lexington, I recognized that we don't have many women in Lexington. We have one. We have one, I believe, that's out in front of St. Joseph Hospital, but we have camels, we have jockeys, we have men, but we don't have anything that shows tribute to women and their historical efforts that they have put forth. So I felt like this was very important, plus to coincide with the 19th Amendment, which will be commemorated in 2020. I thought this was a good project to initiate.
And Councilwoman Plomin, you have another perspective of this. You've worked as a professional in the community for many years, and you have served on the Kentucky Commission on Women, which doesn't exist anymore, by the way. But in that capacity, you learned a lot about the contributions of women.
Yes, as a commission about, it might be 4 years ago, we actually produced a film about women that have made contributions to our community and to the state. And there were actually 50 on this film. And it was astonishing to read about their achievements and their contributions, because I didn't know most of these women in terms of historical. And 50 was pretty impressive. So we have made a big impact on the history of not just Lexington, but the state, and it's time for us to acknowledge that.
So once this dawned on you once you found this out and you found this out. Then there was a sort of a quick call to action, and it seems like people got behind this effort pretty quickly.
It's pretty remarkable. We started a grassroots effort in March, just kind of unveiling the idea, asking women that we thought may be interested to come join us, and it's mushroomed. We've had a lot of support. The city has also donated to our cause. The mayor put in $100,000 in our budget to go forward with this project. We've talked with private organizations and nonprofits, and they've been receptive to this idea. So I think it's going to be a real plus for the city. But
this $100,000 was sort of seed money, and you anticipate this will be quite an expensive exhibit.
Well, right now our goal is it's $500,000, but as we travel with this, that could increase. One of the things that's really nice is this is happening across the country. Most of your cities have some type of plan for 2020, but we have to have ours done because of the celebration. But I think the money's out there, Bill. I mean, grants, foundations, individuals, especially women that have wealth. I think that it's going to get us there by 2020.
Do you think this will call special attention to the suffrage movement, which had so many Kentucky women involved? And people may not realize the very outsized role that Kentucky played in history and at that moment in time.
Absolutely. I mean, we have got some women pioneers, Laura Clay, Lucy Smith, Madeline McDowell Breckinridge, that were on the front lines of the suffrage movement, and actually one of them even ran for president. So this has been something that's been going on as far as our history in Kentucky and Lexington for a long period of time, and they need to be acknowledged for this.
When you have discussions about who might potentially be honored, do you talk about it being, there will be like an initial person or an initial class and then people will be added? Do people disagree about some of the names that should be involved?
Well, on Monday night when we had our event down at the Kentucky Theater, we put out a request. Start submitting your names. But one of the things that we've also discussed, and some cities have done this, is rather than a specific woman or women, that we have more of a generic women monument, and then perhaps take all the different names that we have and put them around it in some type of form, whether that would be some type of wall. That's what we're thinking too. But we're waiting right now just to see what kind of response we have, and then we'll start the RFQ.
But initially the response is strong.
Absolutely. It's overwhelming. It's taking us by surprise. We've had 3 events, and they have been well attended. We had 300 to 400 people at the Kentucky Theater on Monday evening supporting this cause. We've captured emails, we've captured money, we've captured support. So it's on a roll, and what we have to do is just continue the momentum, and that's what's important, is continuing this momentum, and as Kathy said, across the country. This has been a big issue.
Is it amazing to both of you in some ways that the suffrage movement is really less than 100 years old, that it has been that time? Now, Kentucky allowed women to vote in, I think, school board elections prior to 1920.
They did.
But 1920, in some ways, wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
No.
I love looking at the pictures, the historical pictures that we've collected thus far. The parade down Main Street, and Lexington was ahead of the game.
Yes, it was.
I mean, it was one of the national leaders in terms of this project.
You're both serving in public service right now. You both have careers in business, you in real estate, and Kathy in sales and various things, the United Way and so forth over the years. Are women on equal footing these days when you have a seat at the table?
I think at the local level politically, yes. I've been on and off the council for 20 years. I've been with female vice mayors and female mayors and several female council members. But as you go up to the next level, which is the state level, there's certainly a minimal amount of female legislatures. Then you go to the national level, and that even gets smaller. So as far as politically, no. CEOs, I think that we still don't have the number of CEOs that equal the men CEOs or the pay. In the pay equity there, but we're working on it. I believe this Me Too movement has brought a lot of this to the forefront. I'm hoping that this momentum will continue. We just want to make it important to let children know, young men and young women, that we were a part of history, and that my daughters and my granddaughters have the same opportunities as men do.
Similar perspective on that?
We've come a long way. I don't think we're there yet. I remember we did a study back in the early 2000s, the economic impact of women in Kentucky. And my division was called Women in Power. And we were looking at CEOs that were women from Kentucky, and there were none. So, that was like 2002. And now, of course, they are, but not to the level that men are at.
We're one of the few states that has had a woman governor, Martha Lane Collins.
Yes.
That was 35 years ago
right.
when
Gosh,
she was
is
elected.
that long?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and as you said, mayors, two women mayors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And legislators. Georgia Powers is a good example of a woman that really made a difference.
How does this get done going forward?
A lot of work, a lot of community support, and I think
A lot of money.
Can't do it without the money.
We got to get the money.
Can people make a donation now?
Sure. Go on to our website. I think it's up on the screen right now, and you can make a donation. Also, if you have a family foundation, if you know of an individual we ought to be talking to, contact us at the city. Just call us via 311, and we can take that information and start the ask.
Is it a tax-free
Yes,
donation?
it is. Yes, it is. And it's housed through
Yeah.
Bluegrass Community Foundation, so that's our fiscal group that we're working with, yes.
Is there a goal beyond the monument?
Well, I think let's see what happens to 2020. I think certainly there's always an option out there to do something beyond this. But if we can focus on the 2020, get something that memorializes women's contributions, I'll be very happy.
And is there a plan to not only erect the monument, but to take care of it over time?
Sure. Certainly, yeah. We have to look at maintenance.
We're talking with the city. We'll get to that point when they'll maintain it, because that's really important. We don't want to put a statue up and let it be neglected.
Preconception on where it might be at this point?
No, I mean, we've had a lot of suggestions, put it that way, but someplace in downtown Lexington that's prominent so people can enjoy the statues.
All right. The website is on the screen again, breakingthebronzeceiling.com, if people want more information about the effort to build a statue commemorating the accomplishments of women. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers here on WKYT. We'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning. We begin at 4:30, so we're up when you're up. And we hope you make it a good week ahead.